Hey, where you going, man? Where you going? You going to Ducky time? I want to come to Ducky time. It's Ducky time. It's Ducky time. It's Ducky time. Woohoo!
Welcome to another episode of Ducky Time. Today, friends, we're going to talk about invasive species. Boo! Invasive species, what that is a plant that isn't native to our area. So it's a plant that may be brought, or an animal that's brought maybe from Europe or South America, or somewhere that is not the United States and not Illinois. You may be asking yourself, Ducky, what does it matter if there's invasive species? Why is that so bad? You see, friends, it's bad because, A, the invasives take up the places that our native plants need to live. It's bad also because nothing eats the invasive species, and so therefore they just kind of get to run amok. And a lot of the invasive species, especially when it comes to animals, tend to breed more frequently than our native species, so they're not only taking the breeding places of our species, but they're breeding more, so there's more of them. They also tend to eat our native species, which is not fun. This plant isn't actually invasive. It's what we call a nuisance species. It's called burdock, and it has a 2-year cycle for it. So the first year, it just has these big bushy leaves, like you can see coming up in between the stairs right here. The second year, though, is when it gets to become the nuisance, because it gets burrs on it, like this one. Now these burrs get stuck to everything, and if they get stuck in your hair, it pulls your hair out, and it hurts. The seeds, and they get stuck to plants or to animals, and then they fall off in other places in the woods, and that's how the plant spreads its seeds, and that's how it grows and starts growing in other places. Oh, hello there! You may be wondering why I'm picking a plant and shoving it in a garbage bag. Well, friends, this is an invasive species called garlic mustard. Now, garlic mustard is not our friend. It doesn't really taste like garlic or mustard either. You can tell it's garlic mustard because it gets these little white flowers on top, and it has these heart-shaped leaves. Now, garlic mustard, as you can see, if you look on this hill right here, it covers an area, which is no bueno because it takes the spots of plants that we want growing here. It would be great if we could have violets. We have catchweed growing up here that's getting drowned out and choked out. And so we want the plants because nothing will eat the garlic mustard. No animals really eat the garlic mustard. It doesn't taste good for humans either, and so it just kind of grows and takes up space in the woods. This is another invasive species called multiflora rose. Now, multiflora rose was originally brought over to become a hedge plant. It would create natural-looking fences. However, it quickly got out of control. The reason multiflora rose is so bad is because, A, it grows everywhere. It blocks out the sunlight from everything else. One of the things that makes multiflora rose the worst is that it has curved thorns like this. Now, as the plant gets bigger and as it becomes later in the spring and summer, these thorns get much bigger. But as you walk into the plant, you're like, oh, this isn't bad. And then as you walk out, you're like, ah, this is the worst. This is probably one of the worst invasives we have at camp at this point in time. It's the Amur honeysuckle, and it was brought over to help prevent erosion. The funny part is it actually makes erosion worse in a lot of cases. But you can tell because of the shape of the leaves, they kind of have these like lance-shaped leaves. And it looks almost like striped bark. It is a native honeysuckle. However, this is not it, and this one is much more aggressive than our native honeysuckle, and so it's been stealing all of the places that our native honeysuckle wants to live, making it hard for us to actually find our native honeysuckle. There's another invasive plant called greenbrier. It's a vine, and one of the really horrible things about it is that it has these massive thorns. They're about this long, but then all along, the closer you get to the base of the plant, the more thorns are on the vine. This is not good for a lot of the animals that are trying to eat it, just because it can't eat it because of the thorns. They won't be able to swallow it. All right, so we have here some pictures of invasive animals, just because it's really hard to find the invasive animals. So this one is a gypsy moth. Now, gypsy moths tend to, when they lay their caterpillars, when they lay them in a tree, they tend to tent around a bunch of leaves. And so we have tent caterpillars that are native. But the gypsy moths, they tent so many leaves that it can kill the tree. So we have here the emerald ash borer. Now the emerald ash borer is an insect that will drill into primarily ash trees, hence the name. But the bad part about how they do it, as opposed to other insects that are native, is they'll go all the way around the tree, effectively cutting off the supply line from the branches to the roots and from the roots to the branches, killing the tree. The European starling, it was brought over from Europe because somebody wanted all of the birds that Shakespeare had talked about. Now these guys will eat all the food of the native blackbirds and take a lot of their nesting sites as well. So we have here zebra mussel. Now zebra mussels, we find them in lakes. We don't have them in our lake, thankfully. The way they transport from lake to lake is they stick to the bottom of a boat, and then if the boat doesn't get cleaned off, then it moves to the next lake. But these guys, they filter so much of the water that the water looks super clear, which looks super nice. However, it means that there's nothing living in there, so it makes it really hard for the fish and other native animals to live. These guys, the edges of their shells are also really sharp, so if you step on them, your foot can actually get cut. Now you may be wondering, what are some things that I can do to help prevent invasive species? One thing that you can do is when you go camping, buy your firewood from the place that you're going to, especially if you're going to a different county to go camping. And a lot of that is because buying firewood when you're there means that it's from that place. If you buy firewood if you bring in your firewood, that could help spread an insect called the emerald ash borer, which is killing off a lot of the ash trees. Another thing that you can do is to clean off your boat. Because zebra mussels, that's how they get spread from lake to lake, is they cling on to boats and then they release into a different lake. So cleaning off your boat helps prevent the spread of that. Another thing that you can do to help prevent invasive species is to not release your pets into the wild. A lot of problem animals like the capybara in Florida or the red-eared slider in Ohio, they become problem animals because people have them as pets and they release them into the wild, which is not good for the animal or the wild. So don't do that. So friends, thank you for joining us on this episode of Ducky Time. We hope that you join us next time when we talk about the state symbols of Illinois.